Hey y'all. Uh, Edith is joining me today. Oh, and I think maybe I can get a shot of little girl. She's across the room there. Hold on. Yeah, there's little girl. She outweighs Edith and Petra probably by about 3 pounds. She's a big girl. And I don't know where Petra is. Okay, I was going to talk about hard times. My husband and I got married in 1981. He was working a full time job, and after about a year after we got married, he decided he wanted to go in business with his daddy. They had a fence business, and he worked that for about a year, I guess, and he decided that that's not what he wanted to do, and so he quit the fence business with his daddy. And then for about, I guess it was about 2.5 or 3 years, we went through some hard times. Looking back on it, it was not as, I mean, it could be bad. I mean, you look in hindsight at those kind of things, and you remember a lot of the good times, but when you're in the middle of hard times, it seems like you'll never get out of it. And so we rented a place. It was $125 a month. It was a little one side of a duplex, and um, we actually lived there for 13 years. It was getting crowded, but uh, you know, when he left the fence business, he would get odd jobs, doing construction. He could build things, and um, so he would just go out looking, word of mouth, and work with people. And I remember one winter, we went to a Sears outlet store, and we had to decide whether to get him a pair of jeans or a warm coat because he would be working outside. And we stood there and talked about which one was better. And I said, well, I can patch your jeans. I said, but it's going to be hard to work, in cold weather. I said, I think you need to get the coat. Well, he did. He opted for the coat. And, you know, most people can just go out and buy ever how many pairs of jeans they want and a coat and some shirts. But our choice was between a winter coat or a new pair of jeans. Um, and the place that we lived on, the landlord had 50 acres. And when he and his wife moved there in the 50s, they planted an orchard of pears. So I think they had like 28 or 30 pear trees. They had Bartlett and Kiefer pears. And they had pecan trees, apple trees, and so the landlord told me that if I would collect the money from the little ladies that came out and wanted bushels of pears, that I could have as many pears as I wanted. So I did. I collected pears. I made pear preserves, with the lemon strips, and I like lemon in my pear preserves. And of course, I would pick pecans and use those to, make sweet treats, and had apples, of course. I learned to make apple butter in a crock pot. Um, and the landlord, they also had guineas. Now, he let his guineas just roam wild all over his property. And they lay the prettiest bluish grayish eggs. Sometimes they're even kind of a greenish color. And I would go out every day and collect eggs. And of course, the first time I did it, I ended up with a lot of them that weren't any good. But I used the egg test, and I forget which way it goes. You put them in the water, and if they float, they're good or bad, whichever way it is. And but I would always check the eggs, because I never knew when I came upon a little bush or something and there were 2 or 3 eggs under there, if they were good or not. So that's how we got our eggs. Uh, the landlord also had 3 ponds on his property, and my husband loved to fish, so he would catch supper for us. And he and my brother-in-law, they like to hunt, so they would go hunting for coons. And so we had a lot of coons in the freezer, and that meat is really good. I think it tastes like beef, So my sister gave me some recipes for using coon or raccoon. My favorite one was the one with sweet potatoes and gravy. That was always really good. And um, we just kind of lived off the land, I guess, and we always had a garden. And um, but then, my husband a lot of times couldn't find work, and so we got behind in our rent, and the rent was only $125. Doesn't sound like very much, but when you don't have money to pay it, it's a lot. So we got behind, and so my husband made a deal with the landlord, and Brent painted the landlord's house. He painted the duplex that we lived in, and another little house that the landlord owned, and that caught us up on our rent. And of course, I made everything uh, from scratch. I didn't buy any processed foods. Uh, I can remember a lot of times having to send Brent off to work, wherever it was, uh, with a cheese sandwich. I would buy cheddar cheese in the block, and that way I could use it for several different things. I could use it, slice it, make him a sandwich for his lunch, or I could grate it and use it in macaroni and cheese or whatever. And I remember one time I wanted something sweet. Oh, so bad I wanted something sweet. I opened my pantry. I had a half a cup of sugar and maybe a little flour, and I scoured through all my cookbooks, which you can see right back there. Scoured through all of them, looking for a recipe that didn't take very many ingredients, and I found a recipe for a pear crumb. Well, how fortunate for me! The landlord had plenty of pear trees, and it was, during pear season. So I made a pear crumble, or I think that's what it was, and it was delicious, very delicious. Uh, I could make my grocery list, and I would add up how much it was going to cost me, because I was well aware of how much everything cost. And, sometimes I could only spend just so much money. And if I went over that amount, I would start marking off things. And my rule of thumb was, if I can't eat it, to make a meal out of it, then I don't get it. So you really can't make a meal out of butter. Butter sure is nice to have spread on your bread, or, cook your eggs or whatever, but you can't make a meal out of eating a stick of butter. So I would mark butter off the list. Um, Napkins. We don't need napkins. Got plenty of rags or old T-shirts or whatever. So if you couldn't eat it and be satisfied like you would with a meal, then I just didn't get it. And sometimes I would want to have tacos. Well, that we liked, sour cream and black olives. Of course, you have lettuce and tomato and onions and, uh, picante sauce and the meat, the cheese. Well, sometimes I couldn't buy all that at the same time. I would get all the pantry stable ingredients a little at a time. And sometimes it would take 2 months to collect all those things, a can of olives, and then the next trip I would buy the taco shells, and then when it got down to the end where you had the fresh things that you needed, I would get those. But it was the anticipation of being able to eat those tacos that, when you finally did get to eat them, you really did appreciate it. And I remember at one point when our oldest daughter, I think she was about 2.5, and we had saved up the pennies. I kid you not, pennies, nickels, and dimes. And we took her to McDonald's for her very first time. And we got her a little Happy Meal, and she was eating it. And the manager of the McDonald's was sitting behind us, and she made a few comments, and we said, "Oh yes, this is her first time to McDonald's." And the lady couldn't believe it was her first time, but it was a really big deal, because we had to scrounge around and find all the change in order to take her to McDonald's for the first time. Now, I have to say, I never did feel poor during this time. I just thought, it's a hard time. You just make do with what you have and don't complain. And, my husband was doing his best to take care of us, and, I appreciated that. Uh, you know, it, looking back on it, it was good memories. It was good memories. Uh, let's see, what other things? Oh, I remember one time we were going to this little church, and sometimes after the evening service, it was not a large church, it was very small, and everybody would get together and we would go to somebody's house and, have some sandwiches and snacks. And they asked us to bring a 2-liter drink. We said, okay, okay. We got to the car and we were going, where are we going to get 99 cents for a 2-liter drink? I mean, we were checking the seats, checking our purse and wallet, and we were able to find enough money to buy the 2-liter drink for 99 cents plus tax. I think that would have made it $1.09. And, we didn't want anybody to know that we didn't have anything, and that part is not good. You shouldn't be ashamed of where you are. Everybody goes through a hard time, whether it's financial or spiritual or, you know, everybody has troubles. And if you think people don't have troubles, well, then you're just fooling yourself, you know. So I remember one Sunday we were at the morning service, and the pastor said, there's a family in need, and we want to collect money for the family. And they passed around the offering plate. People were putting money in. And Brent looked at me. He said, I've got $5. I said, well, give it, because they're probably more in need than we are. We were living off the land. We weren't starving. So he put our last $5 in that offering plate. So, we had the church service, and then we went home, and I was preparing our lunch, dinner, whatever. And there was a knock at the door, and it was the pastor. And we were the needy family. They brought canned goods and, pantry staples, flour and cornmeal, that sort of thing, and some money. And it was so touching. And I didn't expect to cry, but it was it felt good to be on the receiving end of people wanting to help us. And then it was funny because Brent had put his last $5 in, and we got it back. And and since that time, over the years, I've been able to. I know after Brent died, I knew of a family in need, and I went to them and I took their oldest child to the grocery store, and we bought a bunch of groceries, and he was old enough to know, like, what kind of mayonnaise do y'all like, what kind of lunch meat do y'all like, or whatever. And so I bought, a bunch of groceries for them. And the husband and wife were just saying thank you so much. And I said, well, I'm happy to do it. And I said, one day you'll be able to do it for somebody. And I don't know, it was 5 or 6 years later, and she contacted me and told me that she had been able to do that for someone else. So that's why I tell you all the time to be kind to somebody. Somebody needs your kindness, whether it's a smile or some groceries or encouragement. It doesn't take a lot to do that. Maybe you can't afford to buy them groceries, but you can give a word of encouragement. So, having hard times is, like I say, when you're in the middle of it, you just seem so heartbroken and desperate and thinking, how are you going to get out of it, But you do, and you suffer through it, and it builds your character. It helps you have compassion for other people. So if you're having hard times, think about what lessons are you supposed to be learning. And if you keep having those struggles, there's probably some lesson you need to learn, because you'll just keep coming back to the same problem. And these cats, I get so aggravated sometimes, but I guess, oh, don't be mean. Okay, I'll pet you. So just remember to be kind to somebody. And I guess maybe that's all I wanted to say. Be a good cheer, and just know that the hard times are not going to last forever. Your life changes about every 5 to 7 years. You're going along, everything's fine, and then there's a death in the family. You have a stillborn child like I did, or you have financial troubles, and you fall down and break your leg, and you can't do the things you need to do or whatever. But it's not going to last forever. It's not. It'll come around and things will be better. But you have to also, don't be waiting around, for the good things to happen. You got to be doing something too. Be wise with what money you do have, and be wise with your words when you're talking to people. It's just, you don't get a free lunch. You gotta participate. So okay, this video is almost 20 minutes long. Y'all know that's gonna take like hours to upload, unless I take it up to my daughters. But oh well, that's just a little small problem, not worth mentioning, I guess. But I keep complaining about it. But anyway, y'all have a good afternoon, a good evening, and remember, be kind. Bye.